Welcome to Perfectly Seasoned Cooking Boot Camp. I'm your personal chef, Greg Strahm. Today I'm going to show you how to do 2 simple hors d'oeuvres. You can find the recipes on my website, thesilverchef.net, or you can click below. I'm going to start with 3 cups of fresh basil leaves, and I'm going to show you very quickly how to get only the leaf. You don't want to use the stem because the stem is bitter. So all you do, just pull up, just twist the stem. So you pull the stem off, and then all you have are the leaves. It's that simple. Adding 3 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to just put this in the processor, very quickly pulse until it just gets chopped. And I also have 2/3 of a cup of toasted pine nuts, and I like the toasted ones because they give a little more depth of flavor. I'm going to also pulse that to get those blended. And I have 2/3 cup of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano. And if you're going to make pesto, you got to use the best. So Parmigiano Reggiano, my favorite Parmesan, and I recommend you use it. And I'm going to just blend that real quick. And I'm going to start by adding the oil. And the recipe calls for about 1.5 cups, but you can vary that just depending on how thick you want it. So I'm going to start. Okay, I just want to scrape the sides down a little bit so I can see how much more oil I have to add. And you can kind of see here that it's starting to become pesto. So a little more olive oil. There. I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to get loose. Let's check. There we go. And that's what we're looking for right there. Paste. Now, I do want to adjust the seasoning a little bit. I haven't added any salt and pepper yet, but sometimes the Parmesan has a tendency to be a little salty. Could use just a little bit of salt. Just some salt to taste. And some freshly ground black pepper to taste. Quick pulse. And there you have it. Fresh Pesto Genovese. Well, now that I've got the pesto made, I'm going to use it in a recipe for a stuffing to make a pesto stuffed mushroom. To start with, I'm going to place 1 medium shallot in the food processor, and I want to just cut it up just a little. There we go. And the next thing I'm going to do is to add the stems from the mushrooms, which I have cleaned and stemmed, and the stems are going to help make the stuffing for the mushrooms. And I'm just going to mix those together, and you don't want them to get too completely fine. You want them kind of medium. Now the next thing I'm going to do is heat the olive oil in the pan, and I'm going to brown the mushrooms and the shallot in the olive oil until they're brown and the mushrooms have rendered the water. And I just want to salt and pepper to taste. It's been about 3 minutes, and you can see here that there is browning on the bottom of the pan, and the liquid has almost completely gone out of the mushrooms and the shallot. So I'm just going to Put a splash of marsala. You can use white wine if you like, but I like the taste of marsala in mushrooms. Just a nice splash. And get that off the bottom. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the panko breadcrumbs, about 2/3 of a cup. I'm going to turn the heat off here. Just leave this set for one moment just to get some of the surface heat out before I add the gorgonzola and the pesto. I'm going to use just about 1/3 of a cup. That's about 1/3 right there. And just blend that through, and that will help cool off just a little. Now I'm going to add gorgonzola, 2/3 of a cup. I'm just going to mix that together. Now once again, I'm going to check for seasoning to see if it needs anything. The gorgonzola is also salty, so just be careful before you salt. You have to taste. It doesn't need anything. And we're going to stuff the mushrooms. This is a nice size mushroom for an hors d'oeuvre. If you want to use this for an appetizer, you can get the largest of the baby bellas that you can find. Or if you're a vegetarian and you want to have this as an entree, you can get the large mushroom, and you'll be able to use this stuffing and bake it, and you'll have an entree. And we're just going to stuff these with a sort of a heaping teaspoon. You don't want to you want to make sure that you press it in and go around so you have a nice presentation. Because then we're going to pop them in the oven and let them bake for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to taste them. This recipe yields about 2 dozen hors d'oeuvres. I'm going to top them now with a combination of panko and some Parmesan cheese. I'm just going to sprinkle the top on here. We want to get a nice little crusty brown top. Put them in a 425-degree oven for about 20 minutes until the tops are golden brown. The bacon cheddar pinwheels are very simple to make. And I'm going to start with trimming the crusts off of white sandwich bread. And I like to save the crusts because then I put them in my food processor and make breadcrumbs. So there's no waste. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the air out of them. You need fresh bread because you want moisture. If it's too dry, if it's too day old, it doesn't work nearly as well. So you roll, and you're going to compress each square. You need 10. This recipe makes about 32 pieces. It depends on how many slices of bacon are in the pack. So it could either be 10 slices or 12 slices of bread. So when you're finished, you end up with this. So let's do that one more time. You got to put a little elbow grease into it because you really want these to compress. And I'll show you why in just a moment. Now I have my 10 slices pressed out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take a pound of bacon, and you can count the slices, and this one has 16 slices in it. So I'm going to cut it in half. So that's going to make 32 hors d'oeuvres. Just make sure that it's even and that the bacon is nice and cold. You don't want it to get too soft. I'm going to make a mixture, a dressing to put on there, the bread, so that I can compose the hors d'oeuvre. So I'm going to use 1 can of any type of sweetened condensed milk. And then I'm going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. Dijon mustard works the best for me. I've tried it with regular yellow mustard, not nearly the same. And a dash of any kind of Worcestershire sauce. I'm just going to blend this together. And that's how simple it is. I'm going to take 3 strips of bacon, trying not to tear them apart. Okay. I'm going to lay them side by side. This is now you see why it's important to keep the bacon cold, so that it just is easy to work with. Now I'm going to take 1 slice of bread, and I'm going to make sure, I'm going to have to adjust this a little bit to fit, there we go, at one end, so you've got the edge here, because this is where you're going to roll. Now all I'm going to do is spread some of the sauce on the bread. And sprinkle with shredded cheddar cheese. You can use shredded jack cheese if you would like. It doesn't, cheese is not really that important as far as what type, except I happen to like extra sharp cheddar, so, and even extra sharp white cheddar. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to roll this like a jelly roll. So you're going to go underneath, you're going to lift up and press down. Now you're going to start the roll and roll all the way to the other end. This is why you need the extra bacon on the end. And I have my picks. 1 right in the center. 2, and 3. Now I'm going to continue to do this with the rest of these, but what I'm going to do once I get them all done is I'm going to cut right in between where the slices are put together. And you have 3 individual hors d'oeuvres that you're going to bake at 375 for about 20 to 25 minutes until you get the bacon the way you would like it. I want to suggest to making sure that the bacon is on the crisp side because it makes the inside taste nice and creamy and soft. Everything's come out of the oven. It took about 20 to 25 minutes. And as you can see, I don't have the plate overpacked. One thing that you want to make sure when you're serving for hors d'oeuvres, that there is space, because the attractiveness of the plate is also part of the taste. So even though it makes approximately 2 to 3 dozen, stagger them so that you can mix different hors d'oeuvres on a different plate, and that way you always got something to refill and keep the other ones warm so that they don't get cold. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until next time, this is your personal chef, Greg Strahm, hoping all your days will be perfectly seasoned.